Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is 28th of April 2022. These are the stories that we will be talking in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, by the visit of the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif along with the delegation to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We'll be talking about the gamut of relations that exist between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. What more should we expect during this visit, whether it be a further increase or a stability as far as the economic relationship between the two countries is concerned. We know about the past as far as the aid that has been given or the help that has been given by the kingdom in times of need to Pakistan. Will that aid also be solidified? Will other aspects of the relationship like the expatriates and others will also be talked about during the course of the show? We will be updating you during the course of this 3-day visit of our Premier to the kingdom. But in the meantime, this is going to be our first segment, the relationship between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns of course the solidarity that Pakistan has had as far as the Kashmiris are concerned in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, or what is happening in Palestine is also concerned. Pakistan has always shown solidarity, whether it be on a different fora in the United Nations, in the OIC, or on the other fora, and also Pakistan has had a very clear stance as far as what is needed in order to come to some kind of solution as far as these two crises are concerned. Now also the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has also renewed a call for an independent Palestinian state, and this further solidifies Pakistan's demand as well. Then we'll be talking about the US Department of Agriculture and the US Agency for International Development that will together contribute nearly 700 million to international food aid efforts. But before that, we need to talk about Pakistan and the United Nations as well. Nevertheless, as far as food is concerned, the USDA and the US Agency for International Development will contribute 700 million to international food efforts in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. These agencies have declared this on Wednesday. Not only will the aid go to Ukraine, but also other affected countries such as Somalia, such as Kenya, Sudan, South Sudan, and Yemen. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about Pakistan that has said that it hopes for a UN General Assembly veto initiative will bring in greater responsibility in the conduct of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Now, the General Assembly had decided on Tuesday to automatically meet within 10 days if any of the 5 members, that is the permanent Security Council members, used a veto vote. And it also decided unanimously on Tuesday that the country that uses its veto will have to explain itself as far as to why it has vetoed any resolution. This is going to be our last story. Let's come with our first story. And our first story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the gamut of relationship between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Our Premier Shehbaz Sharif Sahab, along with a delegation, is going to the kingdom on a 3-day official visit. More in the following report.
The brotherly relationship between Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, with decades of close economic, political and military ties, is undergoing historic rejuvenation. On the invitation of Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will travel to Saudi Arabia on his maiden official visit abroad, during which he will hold talks with the top Saudi leadership. According to a statement issued by Prime Minister's office, the Premier will be accompanied by a high-level delegation, including key members of the cabinet. To further augment and diversify their bilateral ties in all spheres, Premier will have bilateral interaction with the Saudi leadership. Minister for Information and Broadcasting Maryam Aurangzeb emphasized that this visit will mark a new historic chapter in this exemplary friendship between our two great nations. Exhibiting fraternal ties between the two countries, Mohammed bin Salman was the first foreign leader to telephone the Prime Minister and congratulate him for taking charge as the country's Prime Minister earlier this month. The Prime Minister thanked the Crown Prince for the felicitations and expressed his resolve to work closely with the kingdom to enhance and further strengthen bilateral relations between the two countries. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have a lasting bond of Islamic brotherhood, whereby both countries support each other at regional and global forums.
Omar Karim, who's a research fellow at RUSI, joins us online. Omar, thank you very much to have joined us. Now that you see our Premier Shehbaz Sharif Sahab going along with a delegation to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on a 3-day official visit, what do you expect from this visit?
Thanks for inviting me. I think that the primary, point of the visit is to ensure continuity, political continuity in terms of the bilateral relationship of the two nations. And it's also sort of a tradition within Pakistan that every new premier, every new leader who comes to the helm of affairs, he or she, they go to Saudi Arabia to reaffirm the proximity between the two nations, to reaffirm Pakistan's solidarity with Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan's, the special nature of the relationship. And I think also this visit is vital and important in terms of creating a new start, initiating a new start between the two sides, because this is a new government. They have new issues. They want some sort of economic support from the Saudi government.
I don't know.
So
Speaking of economic support, Umar, let's talk about the two important points that have been highlighted in the official statement that has come on the eve of the visit of our premier to the kingdom. First is that the focus of this visit of our premier will be on two things: advancing economic, trade and investment ties, creation of greater opportunities for the Pakistani workforce in Saudi Arabia, and exchanging views on a range of regional and international issues of mutual interest. So, of course, these are 3 points. I kind of correct myself. Let's come to the economic ties. The economic ties are there, but they aren't as strong as Pakistan has, maybe with other countries such as the European Union. Do you feel this could change?
So, the key pillar of Pakistan-Saudi economic engagement has basically been the remittances sent by our expatriates from Saudi Arabia. But in terms of investment, you can say, from Saudi Arabia, this has been a point which has not been really addressed properly. And there is a lot of potential in terms of Saudi investment coming into Pakistan. We know, there was the project of a Saudi oil refinery that was initially it was to be set up in Gawada, but then it was moved to Karachi. But still, it's in its initial phases. So I think that this will be one of the key points of the Pakistani side will put this up to the Saudi side, that we need not only more, financial support from Saudi Arabia, but also investment from Saudi Arabia in fields like in the energy field, in petrochemical domain, in food and agriculture side. So it's a long list of sectors where the Saudi Saudi Investment Fund, which is a public investment fund of Saudi Arabia, which is the new, you can say, Crown Prince's arm of Saudi International Investment, that can come in and put its money into Pakistani markets. Also, in terms of the expatriates, Pakistani expatriates working there, I think this is something which the previous government was also working along with Saudi Arabia. This can also be continued. And in terms of course, both countries, they mostly share their foreign policy outlook when it comes to regional issues and conflicts. So I don't think so there will be any sort of extensive discussion on this particular topic, because we already have a very much aligned policy outlook, and there were some hiccups, but in the last year of the last government, I think both sides had pretty much realigned with each other, and I think the new government will continue from where the last government has left it.
Now, the realignment, as you said, is very important, and that has taken place, and that will continue to take place during this visit of Shehbaz Sharif Saab along with his delegation to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, this is an important visit. This is a high-level visit, and high-level visits between the two countries have been going on since decades, in fact. And I'd like to remind you of when the custodian of the two holy mosques, His Majesty King Abdullah, paid a historic visit to Pakistan way back in 2006. A lot of agreements at that time also had been signed, whether it be educational cooperation, scientific cooperation, vocational cooperation, consultation between the foreign ministries, avoidance of double taxation, and all of these were ratified by both the countries. Do you feel more work could be done in these spheres of cooperation between the two countries?
Of course, of course. So these sort of agreements, memorandums of understanding, they are signed at every such visit of Saudi monarch to Pakistan. But the real thing is to translate these understandings into institutional coordination and institutional cooperation, and also to, maybe the Pakistani side, in order to further facilitate such joint ventures, can create a similar body like, CPEC authority for possible prospective Saudi investments into Pakistan, because from my discussions with Saudi officials and Saudi investors, it has come out that there is some need to streamline processes and procedures of bringing in Saudi investors, and making it easier for them to access different domains within Pakistan where they can invest their money. Actually, Saudi Arabia is very much interested in involving in different sectors of Pakistan economy, because, as you know, Pakistan is one of the countries that has successfully handled the COVID pandemic, and its economy was not totally closed. So most of Pakistani, industrial sectors, they are still running, and the Saudi this new investment fund, public investment fund, it's actively looking for such ripe markets where it can put its money and get good returns. So I think Pakistan indeed is one of those places where there are a lot of such opportunities, but there need to be, more bureaucratic coordination. Some institutional arrangements need to be developed, which can ensure that the investors, they have a relatively smooth sailing in terms of their involvement within Pakistani, government circles. And
All
this
right.
is where I think there were attempts made previously as well. But as we know that even the chairman of the board of investment, that position was constantly changing. So that doesn't really augur well in terms of
So there needs to be a
continue.
continuity as far as the policies are concerned,
Exactly.
especially when it comes to the economic policies vis-a-vis the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There are a lot of opportunities, Omar, as far as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is concerned. Of course, infrastructure spending, social spending that the kingdom has really, this is one aspect that it is delving into since the last couple of years. Then, of course, you all remember the 6 economic cities that are to be built under the Vision 2030 program of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Do you feel that more skilled workers could go to Saudi Arabia as a result of maybe this visit, or as a follow-up of this visit, because there is a need for that? Also, there is a need of IT, proper IT infrastructure in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and here in Pakistan we've got a lot of potential specialists in different fields of information technology. Are these two fields we can still work upon?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the idea of Saudi government towards Pakistan is to get at least 100,000 skilled workers into Saudi Arabia. So this is like something totally different from what we are previously accustomed to, like non-skilled labor just going into Saudi Arabia and then trying to find work. So these are, as you highlighted, the IT sector, the development sector, and also Saudi Arabia is very swiftly developing its hospitality sector. And I think Pakistanis, because of their unique relationship with Saudi Arabia, and we have like now generations that have stayed in Saudi Arabia, that know Saudi Arabia, and that are well versed in terms of their international engagement. So Pakistanis can also become a backbone of sorry, this future growth in Saudi hospitality sector. So I think that these are some of the domains. Of course, Pakistan has a very well-developed IT biosphere. So Pakistani IT specialists can become really very well involved in Saudi IT development as well. But the focus now is completely on skilled labor, and Pakistani government needs to take a look upon what are the initiatives that Saudi Arabia under its Vision 2030 program is focusing upon, and then Pakistan can earmark them and try to engage with the Saudi government in these specific domains, and then we can export our skilled workers, skilled labor, and also skilled experts to directly contribute into this new, you can say, development where the Saudi economy is now trying to diversify away from its oil dependence.
Omar, you talked about the Pakistani expatriates. There are about more than 2 million Pakistani expatriates currently working or living in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And not only do they include the skilled workers, but they also include doctors, engineers. There are so many skilled doctors that are working in different hospitals in the Kingdom as we speak. I know many of them, as a matter of fact. There's entrepreneurs, academics, financial experts also that are working there, helping the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. How important is their role in further fostering the relationship between the two countries?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They are. I always say they are an untapped political reserve that Pakistan needs to further capitalize upon. Pakistan needs to further, drive, further get dividends from them because their presence, let's say, in the Saudi health sector, it basically means that they are dealing with Saudi patients on daily basis. So they are developing a unique social bond with Saudi citizenry. Then their presence in educational institutions, that means that they have taught generations of Saudi students. So they have created a unique bond in that capacity as well. So it's sometimes we focus too much upon the labor dimension and the labor dimension, but not this particular dimension where the Pakistani, experts, Pakistani professionals, they have been contributing to the Saudi society for decades now, and they have, in a way, they have become a permanent feature of the Saudi society. The Saudis don't consider them aliens anymore. Most of them, they know the language. They have completely, in a way, internalized Saudi customs, Saudi lifestyle. So they have practically become part of that society. But they often, complain about lack of reception in their home country, and also lack of support in terms of their ventures within Saudi Arabia. So I think this
Maybe
is something.
that could be something that could be worked upon during the visit of Shahbaz Sharif Saab to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I'm sure he understands and knows very well the plight of the Pakistani expatriates. Now, speaking of from Pakistani expatriates to Pakistanis in Pakistan, how much do you feel we in Pakistan revere the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Saudis? Of course, we know that Makkah and Medina are the two holy cities that are present there. The custodian of the two holy mosques is also in Saudi Arabia. Then there is the International Islamic University. That is one of the monuments that was built by the kingdom as well. So was the Faisal Mosque, named after King Faisal, and also Faisalabad, named after King Faisal as well. Do you feel the love that Pakistan has for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is increasing, is the same? What's your take on that?
Indeed, indeed. Pakistan, you can say, because of our long engagement since decades, Pakistanis have become accustomed to this, special relationship with Saudi Arabia, and they have a special reverence for the Saudi royalties, for the Saudi royalty, different kings, crown princes. They have often called Pakistan their second home, and Pakistanis, whenever there is an issue within the Islamic world, not only Pakistani leadership but Pakistani people, they immediately look towards Saudi Arabia as the focal point within the Islamic world, and I think that gradually Pakistanis are understanding the changes that are happening within Saudi Arabia, and they are embracing those changes because with time, everything, every people, every nation, they change. And I think this is a point which is very interesting because Pakistan has a youth bulge, a youthful population. Pakistan has a population that is tech savvy, is very different from the previous generation. And similar is the situation in Saudi Arabia. Like I have in Saudi Arabia, I have been driven by Saudi Uber drivers who were perfectly professional, who were very tech savvy, and I have also been driven by Pakistani Uber drivers who were similarly professional. So I think that there is a lot of mutual overlap in this regard when it comes to Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. And the ties, they have weathered every storm. So there can be hiccups, but we have seen that leaderships from different political, parties from different political perspectives, they have understood this reality that Pakistan and Saudi relationship, they hold a special place within Pakistan's foreign policy outlook. And this relationship is strengthened, it gets its strength because of the backing of the Pakistani people and the special love and affection which the Pakistani people hold for Saudi Arabia.
Omar, we've talked about trade and cooperation. We also know there's a joint ministerial commission that has been established between the two countries. What about the private sector? I understand that the FPCCI and the Saudi counterpart, the Council of Saudi Chambers of Commerce and Industry, have signed an MOU way back in the year 2000 to establish a joint business council. Since then, there have been a lot of developments. Do you feel the private sectors between the two countries can also cooperate, collaborate, and enhance this cooperation and friendship between the two countries in the trade sector?
Definitely. I can say, like, with full surety that the Saudis want their private sector to invest within Pakistan, but also Pakistani private sector firms to come into Saudi Arabia. And I have seen actually a couple of such ventures happening, where one was one Pakistani firm. They had invested roughly 1 billion rupees into some venture in Saudi Arabia. So the ties within the private sectors are growing. One hindrance which always remained there was the Saudi system, where government was overarchingly present in every domain. So the private sector couldn't really professionally engage across different entities and in different countries. But now we have seen that under the new administration, under the administration of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and King Salman, the Saudi private sector has been given quite a bit of leeway in this regard, and they are independent Saudi firms. They are investing in different countries, and also the Pakistani firms. I mean, this is purely, you can say, from a business perspective. Pakistani investors need to target different sectors within Saudi market. So, I know as a fact that Saudi Arabia has been importing Pakistani rice. It has been one of the prime destinations of Pakistani rice. Also, Pakistani nuts, they have been very famous in Saudi Arabia. Pakistani other food products.
Mango should also gain the popularity that they have in other parts of the world. Thank you very much, Umar, Karim, to have come to us and to have discussed the different aspects of the cooperation and collaboration between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, whether it be His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz, Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or Shehbaz Sharif Saab, our current Prime Minister. Both have a certain drive, a certain passion to bring their respective countries on the forefront. And I think working together, collaborating together would bring that relationship to a whole new level. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns Pakistan's solidarity, whether it be with the Kashmiri brethren in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, or with the Palestinian brethren in the wake of all that is happening in both the countries. Not only that, there are other, Pakistan has always stood by its Afghan brethren as well. And of course, the current situation in Ukraine is something that does not go unnoticed. Pakistan has been on the forefront when it comes to highlighting these issues and also to try to find some kind of a durable solution through negotiation. More in the following report.
In a world marred by economic meltdown, poverty, famine, xenophobic and far-right political doctrines, emergence of war hysteria depicts most dangerous phenomenon of contemporary world. The escalating Indian atrocities in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir rendered the occupied valley as most dangerous flashpoint in contemporary world. Kashmiris are living in the world's largest prison as BJP government's demographic and ethnic designs have prompted worse militarization of the occupied valley. The latest spate of bloodshed in Afghanistan and terrorists operating with impunity from Afghan soil to carry out activities in the region is sending ominous signals for peace and stability. The unabated bloodshed in the occupied Palestine continues as Israel escalates its imperial ambitions. Confrontations at the Al-Aqsa compound in Jerusalem, the walled old city, and the attempted eviction of Palestinian families from Jerusalem's Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood pose risk of sparking a slide back into a broader conflagration like last year's Israel 11-day bloody offensive on the Gaza Strip in May. Russia-Ukraine standoff, the biggest conflict in Europe since 1945, has left thousands dead or injured, reduced towns and cities to rubble, and forced over 5 million people to flee abroad. Pakistan is persistently raising plight of Kashmiris, Palestinians and war-ravaged humanity at relevant international fora, and is spearheading various peaceful endeavours as responsible global actor.
All right. Now, as far as Pakistan's efforts for war-ravaged countries or areas of countries where brutalities have been continuing, whether it be Palestine, whether it be in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, whether it be Syria, whether it be Afghanistan, whether it be Ukraine, what Pakistan has always tried to do on different international fora is to try to bring a negotiated solution, a settlement to the dispute, which is extremely important because war can go on for as long as it goes on, but the first casualty are the civilians, and they are the ones who suffer the most. So in any case, what happens at the end of the day is negotiations, is talks, and we've seen in Afghanistan also after 2 decades, what happened at the end was negotiations and talks between the two sides. What needs to also happen on different other fronts of the world where such issues are going on, whether it be in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir or Palestine or Syria or even Ukraine, only negotiations and talks are the solution. And that is what Pakistan has been repeatedly talking about, saying on the different international fora, whether it be the United Nations, whether it be the OIC. And it is extremely important for these organizations such as the United Nations or the OIC to come forward with tangible solutions involving the countries that are concerned, whether it be Palestine. In this case, there needs to be some kind of a solution brought about through the United Nations in between Israel and Palestine, so that of course some kind of a solution happens as far as that is concerned. Also in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where India is continuously disallowing any kind of foray into talks, whether it be with Pakistan or any other country. Aishah joins us online. She's a human rights activist. Aishah, thank you very much to have joined us. Aishah, when you look at the way Pakistan has been going forward as far as the different countries and the war-like situation in these different countries, and I'm citing Afghanistan, I'm citing Syria, I'm citing Ukraine, I'm citing Palestine, and I'm citing Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. How would you like to view Pakistan's efforts, and do you feel Pakistan needs to do more?
Thank you so much, Sami, for having me. First of all, I think war is not a new thing if we talk about in these countries. So I think these countries have been suffering for a very long time. So in the recent times, what we have seen is that what Ukraine and Russia has going through, and as far as our position is concerned, our geographical location is very, very important. And as we have seen in the past as well, that the role of Pakistan and is very important in terms of our geographical locations and in terms of our leadership and politics. So I think as our previous prime minister was dealing with this issue was all right. I think he had this view of taking all these Muslim countries together, and leading OIC was a big and huge task which he did. So I think the approach which ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan had was all right. But of course, now moving forward to the new regime, I hope that the new PM considers this important geographical locations which we have and other importance that Pakistan has in the whole region, and he takes up these allies and these friendships very seriously, and in times of war, as we can see in Ukraine, as we can see in Jammu and Kashmir. So I think we need to play it very carefully. And one thing I would like to mention is that these countries have been suffering for so long, and the youth in these countries have been suffering. And of course, their impact also is on Pakistan as well, indirectly or directly. And in Afghan war, Pakistan suffered. And of course, in Jammu and Kashmir, we suffered. So I think we need to play it very carefully and consider Pakistan first, because you know how US treats itself. They think that they are first. So I think our policy should be that we should be on the first. Our citizens and our people in the country and our development should be put at first. And of course, our ties with these countries should be amended, and the front of a Muslim world can be led by Pakistan, I suppose.
All right, Aishah, Masood, also, when you look at the human rights crisis in all of these war-ravaged states or countries, where starting right now in our neighborhood, Afghanistan, where after 2 decades, the current situation that we see is that of a humanitarian and economic crisis. You look at the other side, we've got Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where people are denied their basic rights, even the right to self-determination, the right to lead a normal life. How can Pakistan strike a delicate balance between looking after its own interests and at the same time also pushing forward for the rights of the people in these areas?
So I think, of course, Afghanistan has been suffering for so long. It's been a decade of hardships for those people. And ending of war did not mean that their miseries ended. It meant that the struggle has just begun. So their struggle to rebuild is very important. I think Pakistan should support Afghani people and the citizens of Afghanistan who have been suffering for so long. And for starters, I think Pakistani people should acknowledge the Afghanis who came to Pakistan a very long time and give them nationality and citizenship and rights, equal rights. And of course, from our part, we are also a developing nation. We are also going through a political turmoil. And I think as much as Pakistan can balance these things, it is possible that we can promote human rights and equality in the region, and as well as take the issue of Afghani people very seriously. And I think it will take it will, of course, it will take a lot of time for Afghani people to grow and develop and have that sense of citizenship. And but of course, I think Pakistan should have that front and should. Being a very prominent figure in the region, I think we should support Afghani people for sure.
Of course, I totally, and this is what Pakistan has been doing, supporting its Afghan brethren, supporting their Kashmiri brethren, supporting their brethren in Palestine and other areas. So of course, this should go on, and I hope that the current government will continue with the same policy as it has also been doing when it was previously in power. Sami Hamdi, Managing Director of the International Interest, joins us as well. Sami, thank you very much to have joined us. Sami, I'll begin my first question with you on the issue of Palestine. Now, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has renewed its call for an independent Palestinian state. It calls for 3 things: end to the Israeli occupation, establishment of an independent Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital, and the guaranteed right of return of the refugees. How much of that is possible, and is it a short-term or a long-term outlook of these 3 points to maybe translate into some kind of an action?
Thank you very much for having me. I think first and foremost, the statement is a protocol statement that is released every time there is a sort of escalation on Palestine. There is an escalation between the apartheid regime and between the Palestinians who are fighting for the return of their land. The reality is that when it comes to support for the Palestinian movements, the reality is that many of the states are now moving away from the cause and are seeking better ties with Tel Aviv, better ties in order to try to find a key to the White House and to the Congress. And the Palestinian cause, or rather the Palestinians themselves, are suffering as a result. So I think that when it comes to the actual statement itself, I don't think necessarily there's any true meaning or substance behind it. The second point to note with regards to your question is, let's suppose that it is serious and that how realistic are these demands? The reality is that they are not necessarily realistic in the current circumstances, given the change in the geopolitical dynamics, in which even the storming of Al-Aqsa received a rather muted response from the Muslim world, from the Muslim community, such in a manner that has encouraged Tel Aviv to continue with its provocations around the Al-Aqsa compound, and now even consider allowing some of those far right in their population to now enter the compound in order to perform whatever sacrifices they believe they should be performing instead. So I think that when it comes to the current environment, I think we are further away from achieving any of these demands than we have ever been before. Having said that, it's important to stress that the Palestinian people themselves have demonstrated that they are not taking these changes lying down, and what we're seeing unfolding is a resistance to attempts to alter the demographics of the Jerusalem area. What Israel is trying to do, what the apartheid regime is trying to do is to make life unbearable for the Palestinians so that they leave this area so that they can replace them with a Jewish population and therefore assert a Jewish identity over Masjid al-Aqsa, over the Al-Aqsa area. The Palestinians are refusing to leave despite the provocations. They're refusing to leave despite their homes being demolished. And this is what has caused a headache for Israel, to the extent to which it has called upon some of its new allies amongst the Arab world to buy Palestinian land and then sell it to the Israelis, in the belief that the Palestinians would be more willing to sell their land to an Arab than they would be to a Zionist occupier. This is, of course, a very dark dimension that is emerging. And this is also the reason why we've seen the apartheid regime in Tel Aviv try to push the King of Jordan to give some of his land to the Palestinians, to say to him, listen, give them citizenship, give them some of the land, make them relocate. And this is what has caused a headache for the King of Jordan, who has struggled to find support to push back against the apartheid regime from his traditional allies. I won't name them here, but from his traditional allies in the region. And this is why we have this very awkward dynamic, in that the blunt answer to your question is none of these demands are realistic, and that even those who are making those demands are do not necessarily believe that they are causes worth striving for.
All right, Sami, which brings me to my country, Pakistan. How do you view Pakistan's efforts as far as highlighting the Palestinian cause or issue? I know we might not have as strong a say as some other Arab countries, but we do have a very important say on the international fora. How do you view Pakistan's contribution as far as the Palestinian cause is concerned?
It's not for me to comment on domestic Pakistani politics, but when we're talking about the foreign policy or indeed the stance on Palestine, it's very clear that the Imran Khan factor was absolutely immense in essentially embarrassing some of the Arab states and indeed reawakening the Muslim conscience with regards to the Palestine issue. Imran Khan mobilized the OIC in a way it hasn't been mobilized for decades. Imran Khan used the OIC to put some of these other states into very uncomfortable positions with regards to Palestine. At a time in which Saudi Arabia and the UAE were pursuing warmer ties with Tel Aviv, Imran Khan was embarrassing them with OIC meetings, demanding a firm stance on Palestine. At a time in which Saudi Arabia and the UAE are pursuing warmer ties with India, Imran Khan was embarrassing them by using the OIC to put them into awkward positions with regards to Kashmir. The issue being that Pakistan in recent times has really soared to the forefront of the Muslim consciousness and representing the Muslim consciousness. Imran Khan's speeches in the UN evoked significant resonance amongst the Muslim world, to the extent that there were even rumors, and I believe these to be untrue, but nevertheless there were even rumors that Pakistan and Turkey would lead some sort of physical effort to push back some of the Israeli occupation attacks on Gaza. The idea being that Pakistan was no longer talked about as just another Muslim country, but was being talked about as a leader at the forefront of the Muslim causes. And this is why all eyes now are on this new government as to whether this visit that is taking place to Saudi Arabia is a message to say we will no longer do what Imran Khan did and put you in uncomfortable positions to take a stance on Palestine, or whether he is going there to say to them, I'm going to continue what Imran Khan was doing. We need to take a tougher stance on issues of Palestine. So the blunt answer to your question is this: Pakistan has become a major player with regards to reflecting the Muslim consciousness. It's been done so particularly in the past 4 or 5 years under the previous administration. It remains to be seen whether it will continue to be the case in this administration. But what is absolutely clear is that the resonance of Pakistanis towards the Palestinian cause has been registered in the Arab world, and this is why we see a greater desire to bring these countries closer together.
All right. Thank you, Sami. Coming back to you, Aishah, Masood. Aishah, when we look at what's currently happening in Ukraine, of course, that also is a major highlight of the current situation that the world is engulfed in, and that is completely changing the geostrategic positioning of different countries across the world, whether it be the West or whether it be the East. Do you feel Pakistan's approach as far as highlighting negotiations and the process of negotiations, because if I understand well, the round of negotiations did go well, but after that there has been a lull and an increase in crisis-like situation in Ukraine. Do you feel Pakistan could also move forward, push for a more of a negotiated settlement as far as Ukraine is concerned, along with other countries that want that as well?
I believe that Pakistan, crucially, as Sami mentioned, that they played a very crucial role in Palestine, because Imran Khan's stance was very clear in terms of Islamophobia around the world, and also towards all the other nations. And he has been a face and a leader to many, not just in Pakistan, but around the world and in Muslim countries as well. So, as far as the issue of Ukraine and Russia is concerned, I think Imran Khan played a good role in regard to having not to choose a side, but to have a very strong side and a very strong stance on the issue that obviously human rights and war crimes are really not approved at all. But and of course he condemned this issue of people who were casualties, and the authorities that were obviously pushing them. But I think this new government needs to stay on that same stance and support human rights and the people, and do not support war crimes at all. And I suppose that in these crucial times where wars have been taking place in Palestine and in Ukraine and in Kashmir and all over the world, I think it's very crucial for us to stay sane and to choose the side of human rights rather than of otherwise.
Thank you very much. I think that is the whole essence of this discussion. Pakistan needs to choose the side that goes with the human rights, with that of the people, whether it be of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, of Afghanistan, of Ukraine, of Syria, and of all the other besieged areas and countries where issues are going on. Pakistan has been at the forefront of talking about negotiate solutions to issues, to conflicts, and let's hope that in the coming days, months and years that this process of pushing for negotiation will come to a tangible solution as far as these different crises is concerned. Thank you very much, Sami Hamdi, Managing Director of the International Interest. Thank you very much, Aishah, Masood, human rights activist, to have joined us to talk about Pakistan's endeavors for a peaceful and negotiated solutions to the world crisis. Let's come to our last two stories. The first concerns Pakistan, that has called for greater responsibility in using veto. Very recently, we know that the United Nations has decided, that is on Tuesday, to automatically meet within 10 days if any of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council veto a certain resolution in the Security Council. And it also requires the veto user to defend its conduct in the General Assembly. The move will allow other members of the General Assembly to discuss this veto move as well. We all know the 5 veto wielders, that are Britain, China, France, Russia, and the United States of America. This veto initiative was co-sponsored by 83 member states. This was introduced by Liechtenstein, and the resolution was adopted with consensus. Pakistan's point of view has said it has agreed with the overall objective of the resolution, and the objective, of course, is to bring greater responsibility in the conduct of the permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. And also, Pakistan appreciates the co-sponsor's assurance that the resolution and its provisions are not going to prejudice the intergovernmental negotiations on the Security Council reforms. This is very important. Pakistan sides with it, but Pakistan wants also more responsibility as far as the 5 permanent members who have the right to veto is concerned. Let's come to our last story, and that concerns US agencies that have directed $670 million to international food aid in the wake of the Ukrainian crisis. The US is to provide $200 million in humanitarian aid for Horn of Africa as well. This is what has been said by the State Department. Ukraine is not the only country where the humanitarian aid is going to go. Other countries include Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, and Yemen. 282 million of this aid will come from the Bill Emerson Humanitarian Trust, which is co-managed by the agencies, by these 2 agencies, that is the United States Department of Agriculture and the US Agency for International Development, otherwise known as USAID. The United Nations Department of Agriculture will also provide $388 million for transportation, shipping, and other costs. And of course, this is important because there is a clear line as far as the United States is concerned, as far as humanitarian aid is concerned, that it needs to go to the right countries at the right time before the crisis engulfs to a certain quarter. Let's also hope that that the United States of America increases its aid and its help as far as Afghanistan is concerned, and the current situation in which the Afghan people are currently embroiled in. With that, we come to an end of today's Newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to you, us, and Pakistan. Stay safe and have a blessed fast. Allah Hafiz.